Hey, how you doing? This is the McGuire Review, and today we're going to be taking a look at Conquest of Speros. Man, this is a great game. Grayfox came out with this, I believe it was last year. I got the Kickstarter edition. If we look at the box really quick, 30 minutes, ages 10 plus, 2 to 4 players. So let's take a look really quick at what you get in the game. This is the entire game here. Outside of, I do have an expansion here that came with the Kickstarter version. In this game, you have smaller, military unit type people for 4 different types of classes. And in this bag, you'll see they do have larger meeples for what they consider the generals. We'll talk about that here in a second. For the Kickstarter version, it did come with 4 larger painted meeples to represent each one of those generals. And they're really, really cool. At the end of the video here, I'll take some pictures close up. They were really nicely done. All right, so get into the components really quick. I'll start here with the rulebook. This game does come with a full color rulebook. The rules are very straightforward and simple. There's 4 different types of actions you can do every time it's your turn. And it also comes with this quick start guide. It's actually laid out really well, and it has some pretty cool artwork on it. I'll show that. That's one of the things that I'll call out with this game. The artwork was done, it's excellent. I mean, the artist they chose for this game did an excellent job representing the feel of the game, and you'll see that throughout the entire game. The artwork is just, it's very clean all the way across the board. All right, next thing we'll hit here is it comes with 4 reference cards, and these are actually really well done as well. On one side, you'll see gameplay quick reference. So the different actions you're going to go through when it's your turn. So when it is your turn, the first thing you're going to do is discard a card that's in your hand. And I'll show you those cards here in a second. You can activate. There's various abilities that each one of these location cards have. The ability step, which is basically activating the ability on that card. And then you're going to choose one of 4 things. You're either going to explore, you're going to attack, lead, or plan. So when we look at exploring is really putting a location card out in front of you. It's something that you're going to use in a future turn. You can attack, which means you basically can take one of your meeples and or your general and put that onto the board and play. You can lead, which means you're going to take your general and a person, one of your meeples that are attached to that specific color, put that out on the board. Or you can plan, which is draw 3 cards from the shared location deck. So there's quite a few things you can do on your turn, and each one of those things, again, you can only choose one, allows you to play out different strategies amongst the game. So that's really interesting as well. So let's hit these really quick. Here's just one that I chose for as an example. This is an ocean background, and I'll show that here. Again, artwork being really cool, and there's various locations throughout the cards you can draw here: forests, swamps, mountain locations. This one, however, is an ocean. You'll notice there are 3 circles here on the card. That's where you're actually going to be placing your meeples as you play the game. This is definitely a worker placement type game, very strategic from that perspective. And this one happens to have an ability right there on the card. So any of the cards that have that text there at the bottom, this one says reveal this card before discarding it. Add the top card of the discard pile to your hand, then discard this card. So it's interesting, when you play these location cards, you can kind of choose, you know, I'm going to play this because I think later in the game I might want to put a meeple on this and control this card and take this. Basically, you just have to have the most meeples on a card to take control of it. Or you may be simply playing this card just to get it out of your hand and discard it because you want to actually activate the ability that's on this card. And I really like that about this game, that every time it's your turn, you're kind of deciding, do I use my ability for this round, or do I get the card out in front in gameplay to be able to use it for future rounds of being able to acquire that card. You'll also notice each card has a symbol right down here on the bottom, and that's either a bar of gold, a bar of silver, or a crystal. There's various things, and the only purpose for that is you actually can, as you acquire land, you can build those into sets. And some of the, and we'll get into this in a second, some of the secondary objectives and different ways you can get points at the end of the game is actually having sets of cards. Like, oh, I have 3 cards that all have a crystal on them. Because I have that, that gives me an extra 2 victory points, let's say. All right, so that's kind of a high review of the card. The next thing we have here are artifacts, and these are drawn at the beginning of the game. It's not something that you necessarily have to do. This is one of those optional things where you can draw artifacts, and there's generally 2 artifacts you'll draw for a game. And if you acquire these cards, they are generally worth more victory points than a standard location being worth 1 victory point. This one, for example, the Field General's Chest Plate, is worth 3 victory points. And as you land your meeples on these cards, there's actually an action that you can take upon that turn when you put your meeple on the card. Some of them are upon the turn, some of them are upon the next turn. But there are various things that can help you lay down some strategies as you play the game. So very cool implementation of these artifacts. The next 2 things we have here are our bonus objectives and our mastery objectives. These are another part of the game where if you wanted to make this more wits versus wits, you can remove a lot of these cards like the artifacts. I would leave the artifacts in, but things like the bonus objectives and the mastery objectives, these are some things that you get in secret that quite frankly at the end of the game can give you a bonus. So for example, if we look at one of our bonus objectives here, this one says 2 victory points for each captured forest. So you're going to get 3 of these when you start the game, and you're going to have these hidden. And at the end, you're going to look at your 3, and you're going to look at what you've acquired, and you're going to say, you know what? 2 victory points for each captured forest benefits me the most for this game, because let's just say I was able to capture 3 different forest locations within that game. That would actually give me 2, 4, 6, so 2 for each one of those, 6 extra victory points just for capturing those forest locations. So it is definitely something that's kind of secret. It's hidden behind the scenes. Your opponents wouldn't know that you had that. And it's kind of a way to come out at the end where it may appear to others that you're falling behind in victory points, because once you understand, and again, this quick reference card on the other side tells you what the breakdown of victory points are to win when the game is over. After you play the game a few times, you're going to be able to look around and be like, okay, I kind of know where people sit on their victory points, and it may feel like you're ahead, but you never know what people's bonus objectives are. They may pull them into the win. And much similar, we've got our mastery objectives, and I'll pull this one. For example, this one is Invader, and what this one allows you to do is 3 victory points to the player with the most minions on a 4-space card. So after the game is over and we're doing the final scoring, if you decided to do the mastery objectives, which you hand out randomly, you could pull this out and say, okay, guys, right here, I get 3 victory points extra because I'm the player that has the most minions on a 4-space card. And that means with your locations, remember we referenced the example we used initially, had 3 spaces on that location, it would have to be a card that had 4. And something that, you may not have even acquired the card, but you have the most amount of minions on that 4-space card. If we hit really quick here, the different home bases as well as characters in the game, this is another component I thought was really well done. Instead of just simply saying, hey, you got red, blue, green, and black, right? There's your meeples, there's your color, and here's kind of a little home base, and here's an example of the red. So there's some nice artwork on there of kind of a camp in the forest at the foot of what looks like maybe a mountain. And there's some flavor text on the back that gives you some information about that location. Instead of they could have just stopped there. They took it one step further and they created actual characters around each one of those locations. Here's one here, for example. And what's nice about this is on the back of this card, it indicates there are 2 abilities. And once per game, you can choose to activate one of those abilities. You don't have to, but you can choose, and it is in your benefit to probably do that at some point during the game. The only strategy is when's the best time and which one of the actions do you want to actually activate. And I'm not going to read all these actions here, but just to know each character has 2, and they are very different in strategy of how they'll play out. I will read the actions on this card just to give you a feel. So one of the Dwarf General, his 2 actions. The first one is Cavern Charge. Add a minion to a mountain location you explored this turn, which basically allows you to add extra minions upon your turn, and maybe near the end of the game acquire a location kind of out from under someone real quickly. And the second action is Master Miners. Place any mountain from the discard pile into the skirmish area, then place a card from your hand under one of your captured locations. You may count that card's victory point value and resource towards scoring at end of game, which basically means that at the end of the game, you're just allowed to kind of take a card in your hand and pretty much for free be able to complete a set that you have or be able to add an extra victory point. So you can see both of those actions are very different in nature and will play out strategically very different within the game, specifically on when you play those actions. So, you know, really cool, really well done. It adds a lot of variation to the game. It adds a lot of replayability to the game. You're not just a color. You're able to choose a different general with different actions that affect the game in a different way. So, you know, you may play 4 or 5 games with one general and get really, really good with that team, and completely can change up the strategy and the feel of the game by going with a different general. So my final thoughts as I kind of wrap this up here. What I've done is I've actually put here on the whiteboard what I think, and I'll have this in the picture as well with the final thoughts, what I think are some of the things that really jump out to me. And the first being the artwork. We've already mentioned that the artwork is fantastic in this game. There is art on almost every card, even if it's fairly minor to fairly extensive. I'm very impressed with the artwork. They've done a great job. Gameplay flows quick. You know, they've got 30 minutes on here. If you've got 2 people playing this game, both people really know what they're doing, you can whip through one of these games easily in 17 to 20 minutes. I've played quite a few games. I have yet to win at this game, and it is one of my favorite games right now, so that's a little aggravating, but you know, I'll keep playing, and hopefully I can pull a win at some point. The third item we've got here is different characters and powers. We just went over that. That adds a lot of replayability, makes the game very robust. And the final thing I'll say is scoring. You know, this game has a ton of ways to be able to score victory points and win, which I really like. It isn't like you play this game, you put all this strategy into different types of you know, movements through the course of the game, and when you end, it's like, oh, you just get 1 victory point for every location, and that's it. Done, right? That you can only win one way. There are a multitude of ways to gain victory points through this game, and put yourself in the lead for the win. And again, just like we went over with some of these, you know, bonus, you know, you may play the game in a way that really throws everybody off and makes everybody think, oh, you know, this guy's just all over the place. And at the end of the day, you pull out one of your bonus objectives, and there's been this grand strategy the whole time of why you only collected forests, or why you were collecting random locations because you were looking for sets, and that's what puts you over the top for the win. So really well done. Grayfox game, another great game. Conquest of Speros, definitely thumbs up. This has been the McGuire review. I'll see you guys later. Quest on.